The outsourcing of American jobs through globalization in the early 1980s triggered a cycle of homelessness in America not seen since the Great Depression. Trickle-down economics of the Reagan administration eliminated the tax base that funded public housing and other social services for the poor. For 35 years, the need for food, shelter, and health services for the majority of homeless has been chronically out of reach. Many streams contribute to the flood of homelessness. More than half of the homeless population are simply victims of economic displacement. Fallout from the social safety net sweep people with catastrophic medical expenses, the elderly and unemployed, the mentally and physically ill, and people flushed from an industrialized prison system into the streets. Orphans and foster care children that matriculate into young adult chaos and runaways from abusive and dysfunctional families become lost in the tide. Trauma-related stress disorders are often a factor leading to homelessness and are a daily fact of life for anyone once they are out on the street. When cultural bias about who are the deserving poor versus the undeserving poor forms public policy, biases against people with addictions and prison records further stratify the dysfunction. The fact is that nearly all homeless people have some sort of medical, psychological, or physical disability, and nearly all suffer post-traumatic stress disorders. There is a dynamic relationship between adverse childhood experiences and the quality of life that one is capable of leading. One study, a collaboration between the Centers for Disease Control and Kaiser Permanente, found that most people suffering from a poor quality of life can trace their symptoms, drug addiction, mental illness, and homelessness, back to adverse childhood experiences. They produced a questionnaire that gives the respondents a score from 0 to 10 based on their exposure to adverse child experiences. The higher the score, the higher the risk of negative health and quality of life outcomes. Judge Mike Schneider of Houston Girls Court explains what compelled him to become involved in changing the way services are disseminated to Houston's homeless.
Because, it's one thing to read about these cases, and certainly the amount of press that's been given to these types of cases has increased hugely over the last 5 years. But a lot of it is just from seeing real live people who are going through this.
Life story. It's like my mom gave me away. I never knew who my father was from birth, so it was like I had to learn everything on my own. Like my mom gave me away when I was 5 years old. People I didn't even know, but I was happy. Even though it abused me, but I was happy. But it's things that my mom let happen to me. I've been abused as a young child, and it had a big effect on me. But to this day, I'm a strong person. I can say that honestly.
I was 9, about to be 10, and he was killed. And she threw me in a fireplace, and I remember having burns and stuff. And the people seen us sitting in the car, and they seen that I had burns. She didn't even try to take me to the hospital. They took me to the hospital, and I remember them taking us to a foster home. But in the foster home, the boys and the girls were split up, and they were abusing my brother, and they were abusing me. I was like
sexually, or
yeah, sexually. Like the staff member.
Right now, if you get they call whooping and spanking, mine was with stretcher cord, switch that they wrap around it, plants, water hose, whips, whatever mama had in the hand. If you did something wrong, that's what you would get hit with.
So why do you think she used those ways on you?
Because I figure her parents did her like that. And she figured that was the way that her parents brought her up.
Yeah.
So that's the way she bred her kids up. But
Houston has become a part of the vanguard in the way that this nation meets the needs of the chronically homeless and the working poor. Houston has always been a compassionate city. Witnessing the plight of its most vulnerable citizens, Houston city leaders were inspired to found Neighborhood Centers, Inc. and the Star of Hope Mission in 1907. We talked to Marilyn Brown, CEO of Coalition for the Homeless Houston-Harris County, and asked her what has changed over the decades in the way her agency operates.
What happens now is we partner. Before, each one felt like they had to add the other piece, and they were doing things that wasn't their level of expertise. So by bringing everybody to the table, determining what our real needs in Houston were based on data of what we had, what we needed, and what our population, what the triggers and the ways that people were experiencing homelessness in our geographic jurisdiction, we created a system and began to build those partnerships.
And the results?
And the result is it's working. Amazing. We're so happy. We actually branded it, called it The Way Home, so that everybody kind of works under this same identity of The Way Home. And since January of 2012, when the system transformation started, we have documentation of over 4,300 veterans and their families have been moved from homelessness into housing, and over 3,000 formerly chronically homeless individuals, which is a very specific definition, people who are very vulnerable, but over 3,000 of them in the 4+ years have been moved from the street, because mostly chronic individuals are most of those that are unsheltered most of the time, and they are now successfully living in housing.